Hello students, welcome back. Kya hal chal? How are you students? Students, you all know that in order to get a seat in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, that is AIIMS, you should get top rank. In order to get top rank in India, you should get top marks in the NEET examination, and in order to get top marks in the NEET examination, you should be knowing each and every point from NCERT textbook biology. So in this class, we are going to discuss each and every point from NCERT book of biology 11th class. So without missing a point, write all the points in your notebook and prepare well. So let's start the class. Cell the Unit of Life part 2 video. So in this session, we are going to discuss the differences between plant cell and animal cell. Both of them are eukaryotic cells. Why? Because there is a well-defined nucleus in plant cell as well as in animal cell. So in the plant cell, you can see there is a cell wall. There is a cell wall. Whereas in animal cell, there is no cell wall. This is the main fundamental difference between a plant cell and animal cell. In a plant cell, there is a cell wall, but in animal cell, there is no cell wall. What is the material present in the cell wall of plant? Cellulose. Cellulose cell wall is present in the plant cells. Okay, so here you can see the dotted region, which you can see this is the cell wall of the plant. Then what is this here? This is the cell wall of adjacent cell. You can imagine there is one more plant cell here. There is another plant cell here. So this is the cell wall of the neighboring cell, right? So this is the cell wall of this cell. So below the cell wall, you can see there is a flexible membrane which is called as plasma membrane, which have represented in blue color. So what is this called? This is called plasma membrane. Plasma membrane. A plasma membrane is a flexible membrane which is made up of lipids. So what molecules are present in the plasma membrane? Plasma membrane is largely made up of lipids. Mainly it is made up of lipids, and other molecules are also present like proteins and also carbohydrates. We will discuss later about the structure of plasma membrane. Okay, next, below the plasma membrane you can see there is a fluid matrix which is called cytoplasm. So inside the cell, below the plasma membrane, the entire space is filled with a fluid called as cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is a place where several cellular activities will be taking place, several metabolic reactions will be happening in this region. It is called cytoplasm. So in the cytoplasm, there is the brain of the cell which is called as nucleus. What it is called? It is called nucleus. This is the nucleus. Okay. So now, between the two adjacent cells, this is one cell, here is one more cell. Between the adjacent cells, there is a cementing material. There is a cementing material. So I am going to shade it. This is the cementing material. The cementing material which will bind two adjacent plant cells, it is called middle lamella. It is called middle lamella. Middle lamella. Middle lamella, it holds or it binds the two adjacent cells tightly just like a cement. Okay, the middle lamella is made up of material called calcium pectate. Calcium pectate. Note down this, students. It is made up of material called calcium pectate. Okay. Now, let's see what is there inside the plant cell. Inside the plant cell, surrounding the nucleus, there is network of tube-like structures which is called as endoplasmic reticulum. Which is called endoplasmic reticulum. It is network of tube-like structures which is distributed around the nucleus towards the periphery. It is called endoplasmic reticulum. Here also I am drawing endoplasmic reticulum. It is network. Network of what? Network of tube-like structures. present around the nucleus, it is called endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so if the endoplasmic reticulum has ribosomes which are called protein factories of the cell, if ribosomes are present on the endoplasmic reticulum, that endoplasmic reticulum is called rough endoplasmic reticulum, RER. The function of RER, it is involved in protein synthesis of proteins. The endoplasmic reticulum, which does not have ribosomes, its surface appears smooth, hence it is called SER. SER stands for smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Its function is lipid synthesis. Lipids means fats. SER synthesizes lipids, and also it can produce steroid hormones in the animal cells. In the animal cells, SER also can produce lipid-like steroid hormones. Okay, so that is the function of SER. Okay, students, those cells which are very active in protein synthesis have more amount of rough endoplasmic reticulum inside the cell. Next, close to the nucleus, there is another cell organelle which is called as Golgi complex. What it is called? Golgi complex. Golgi complex cell organelle consists of several flat disc-shaped sac-like structures which are arranged parallel to each other. So this cell organelle, what it is called? It is called Golgi complex. Golgi complex. So what is the function of this cell organelle? This cell organelle, it always remains very close to the endoplasmic reticulum, and it has some functions in coordination with endoplasmic reticulum. The main function of Golgi complex is modification of proteins. It modifies the proteins from immature to mature proteins. That is the function of Golgi complex. Next, in the cytoplasm, we have another important cell organelle which is called chloroplast. Chloroplast is a plastid which has the green pigment called as chlorophyll, and it undertakes the function of photosynthesis. So in the chloroplast, what you can see? In the chloroplast, you can see a liquid called as stroma, and also you can see several grana. The chloroplast is involved in photosynthesis. This is chloroplast. So a chloroplast is also called kitchen of the cell, since it synthesizes the food material with the help of sunlight. So we can find many chloroplasts, not only one, many chloroplasts you can find in a plant cell. Okay, what is the color of chloroplast? The chloroplasts are green in color because of which pigment? Chlorophyll pigment. So this is also another chloroplast, right? Next, another cell organelle which is called the powerhouse of the cell. Can you guess what is this cell organelle? The powerhouse of the cell, that is mitochondria. Which is called the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria are actually colorless cell organelles. They are colorless, they doesn't have any pigments. They have the function of producing ATP energy. That's why they are also called as the powerhouses of the cell, mitochondria. And again, their number will be always more than one. Many mitochondria you can find inside the cell. This is another mitochondria. Okay, so over. Next cell organelle. Vacuole. Most of the space present in the cell will be occupied by a large cell organelle which is called as vacuole. V-A-C-U-O-L-E, vacuole. About 90% of space, approximately 90% of space will be occupied by the cell organelle called as vacuole. Okay, so what is the function of this vacuole? The vacuole, it will store several minerals, okay, which are present in the cell, and also it will store some waste materials of the plant cell. That is the function of vacuole, and vacuole is covered by a membrane which is called tonoplast. What is the membrane called? Tonoplast. You can note down in your book, students. The vacuole is covered by a membrane called tonoplast. Tonoplast. So this is the tonoplast. This is the membrane. Okay. Next, in the cytoplasm you can also see free ribosomes which are floating around. These are ribosomes, free ribosomes. Free ribosomes are also present. Inside the plant cell you can also see small membrane bound cell organelles called as peroxisomes. Peroxisomes. And also you can see another small membrane bound cell organelle which is called lysosome. Inside the nucleus you can see a dark non-membrane bound body which is rich in ribosomal RNA. It is called nucleolus. It is called nucleolus. It is a dark body which is non-membrane bound, not covered by any membrane, present inside the nucleus. And the nucleus is covered by a membrane covering. The membrane covering which covers the nucleus, it is called as nuclear envelope. It is called nuclear envelope. It is called nuclear envelope. So these are the different cell organelles which are present in a plant cell. And one more important point, students, here the two adjacent cells, here will be one plant cell and here there will be another plant cell. So the adjacent cells will be connected by connections called as plasmodesmata. These connections are called as plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata. The adjacent plant cells. This is one plant cell. Here you have to imagine there will be another plant cell. So the adjacent plant cells will be interconnected by openings called as plasmodesmata. Through this plasmodesmata, the molecules can move from one cell to another cell. Understood, students? Now let us discuss animal cell. In a typical animal cell, you can see the nucleus is present at the center in most of the cases. But in plant cell, the nucleus will be in the peripheral position because of the large vacuole. Okay. So this is the plasma membrane, the outermost membrane. Plasma membrane which covers the animal cell. There is no cell wall as such in the animal cell. Only the plasma membrane acts as the outer delimiting membrane. There are certain projections formed by the plasma membrane. These projections, finger-like projections, are called microvilli. They are called microvilli. They help in absorption of nutrients. And below the plasma membrane, you can see the fluid matrix which is called cytoplasm. Cytoplasm. You can see the fluid matrix called cytoplasm. And the nucleus, as usual, the nucleus is covered by a membrane called nuclear envelope. The nucleus is covered by a membrane called as nuclear envelope. Okay. Inside the nucleus, you can see the liquid called nucleoplasm. Nucleoplasm. In the nucleoplasm, you can see a dark body, non-membrane bound body, which is called nucleolus. What it is called? Nucleolus. This is the nucleolus. Okay. So as usual, the nuclear membrane surrounding the nucleus, there is a network of tubules which is called endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum. This is endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum is of two types. Those endoplasmic reticulums which have ribosomes, they are called rough endoplasmic reticulum. Their function is protein synthesis. And those endoplasmic reticulum which doesn't have ribosomes, they are called smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Their function is lipid synthesis and synthesis of lipid-like steroid hormones. Okay. Next, very close to the endoplasmic reticulum, you can see disc-shaped flat sac-like structures which are arranged parallel to each other. This cell organelle is called Golgi complex, whose function is protein modification. Golgi complex, whose function is modification of proteins. Okay. Next, we don't find vacuoles in the animal cells. Vacuoles are absent. Mitochondria are present, which are called the powerhouses of the cell. They are colorless cell organelles, mitochondria, which are involved in synthesis of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. These are mitochondria, powerhouses of the cell. Chloroplasts are absent. There are no plastids. Chloroplasts are absent in the plants. There is an cell organelle called as centriole. Centriole in the animal cell, there will be always a pair of centrioles which are arranged very close to each other. So this cell organelle is called centriole. The centriole is involved in formation of spindle apparatus. The centrioles are involved in spindle apparatus, which is very essential for cell division. Okay, we will be discussing about centriole later. And also you can see lysosomes, which are very important in the animal cell in order to dismantle the old cell organelles, in order to digest the old worn out cell organelles. Lysosomes play very important role. Okay, so this is about animal cell, students. Students, now let us discuss differences between plant cell and animal cell. In a typical plant cell, you can see the cell is covered by a rigid layer called as cell wall. Cellulosic cell wall is present in the plant cell, whereas in the animal cell, cell wall is absent. The next difference is that in the plant cell, you can see a large vacuole in the cytoplasm, whereas in the animal cell, vacuole is absent. Second difference. Next, in the plant cell, there is no centriole. Centriole cell organelle is absent, whereas in animal cell, a pair of centrioles are present. Okay, this is the third difference. Next, in the plant cell, microvilli are absent, whereas in the animal cell, you can see microvilli, finger-like projections. Next difference, in the plant cell, you can see across the cell wall, there are openings called as plasmodesmata, which help in movement of molecules from one cell to another cell. In animal cell, we don't see such type of plasmodesmata. So these are some of the differences, and one of the important difference is chloroplast. In case of plant cells, chloroplasts are present. In animal cells, chloroplasts are absent. So note down this point, students. Students, now we will discuss the structure of cell membrane. What is the cell membrane? The outer delimiting membrane which surrounds the cell is called as cell membrane. It is also called as plasma membrane. So after the invention of electron microscope, it made easy for the scientists to study the structure of plasma membrane. So they used the human red blood cell in order to study the structure of plasma membrane. The structure of cell membrane was studied in human RBC by using electron microscope. If you observe the structure of plasma membrane, it shows fluid nature. It shows fluid nature. That is, its surface is as flexible like a fluid. It is as flexible like a fluid. Have you observed the ocean? The ocean surface is moving like this, just like surface of ocean. It is as flexible as the surface of ocean or fluid like nature. Okay. So next, In the plasma membrane, the main important molecules you can see are the lipid molecules. They are arranged in two layers. This is one layer of lipid molecule. This is another layer of lipid molecule. So it is called lipid bilayer. What it is called? Lipid bilayer. What is lipid bilayer? The layer which is made up of two lipids is called as lipid bilayer. It is the main component in the plasma membrane that gives fluidity to the plasma membrane. Okay. So the entire plasma membrane is flexible. It is able to move just like a fluid. The adjacent lipid molecules are attached to each other, and because of this attachment, what happens? The plasma membrane shows its integrity. It does not break randomly anywhere because the molecules are closely attached to each other. In between the lipid molecules, you can see small molecules of cholesterol. These blue color molecules which you can see, they are the molecules of cholesterol. These cholesterol molecules, they improve the stability of the plasma membrane, especially they are found in the plasma membrane of animal cells. Okay, that is about cholesterol. Here also you can see these are the cholesterol molecules. Okay. The second component in the plasma membrane is the protein component. Here you can see this is a protein molecule. The protein molecule which is present both in the upper plasma membrane, upper layer of the plasma membrane as well as the lower surface of the plasma membrane. This protein is called integral protein. It is called integral protein. The integral protein, it traverses the both layers of lipids. Okay, you can see here a portion of protein is exposed this side and also exposed on other side. It is called as the integral protein. This protein, it just floats in the ocean of lipids just like an iceberg. Imagine that there is an ocean. In the ocean there is a huge iceberg and it is floating in the ocean. So just like that, in the ocean of lipids, this integral protein is floating. Understood? So that is the comparison which you can imagine about integral protein. There are second type of proteins which are small proteins which are present just on the upper surface of the plasma membrane. They never touch the lower layer of lipid. So this type of proteins, they are called as extrinsic proteins or peripheral proteins. They are called extrinsic proteins or peripheral proteins. So there are two types of proteins, integral proteins and extrinsic proteins. Extrinsic proteins are also floating like small icebergs in the ocean of lipids. Okay, next coming to the carbohydrate component. The carbohydrate component consists of sugar molecules. So this is a sugar molecule. The sugar molecule, when it is attached to the protein, you can call that protein as glycoprotein. So here you can see this protein does not have any sugar molecule. It is just a extrinsic protein. So whenever the extrinsic protein is attached to a sugar molecule, then you can call that extrinsic protein as glycoprotein. So what that protein is called? Glycoprotein. It can be called as glycoprotein because it is attached with the sugar. Okay. Similarly, when the lipid molecule, you can see here this is a lipid molecule. When the lipid molecule binds with the sugar molecule, this particular lipid molecule can be called as glycolipid. So based upon the presence and absence of sugars, the proteins are again of two types, glycoproteins and normal proteins. A glycoprotein is having attached sugar, and lipids, glycolipids and normal lipids. Glycolipids have an attached sugar molecule. Those lipids which does not have attached sugar molecules are just called as lipids. Now let us discuss in detail about structure of a lipid molecule. If you observe the lipid molecule is having head and tail. This is called as tail. The lipid molecule has two parts. One is the head and another is tail. The head is having polar nature, whereas the tail is having non-polar nature. Students, come on, tell me which component is large in size. The tail component is large in size. That's why the complete lipid molecule shows non-polar nature. Okay. So because of polar nature of the head portion of the lipid molecule, it will try to attract the water molecules. Okay. Whereas the tail portion, which shows the non-polar nature, it will try to repel away the water molecules. It is hydrophobic. Head is hydrophilic, that is water loving. They will try to attract the water molecules towards them. So the polar component is hydrophilic, water loving. Philic means loving, water loving. Whereas the non-polar tail has property of hydrophobic, means repel the water molecules. So based on this concept, questions can be asked in the NEET examination. Okay, so there is one inorganic atom which is found in the lipids, that is phosphorus. Because of presence of phosphorus, these lipids can be called as phosphoglycerides. Chemically they are phosphoglycerides. Chemically, the lipids which are present in the plasma membrane are called as phosphoglycerides. Understood, students? Now let us see. The structure of cell membrane was studied in human RBC. When scientists studied the structure of human RBC, they found that the plasma membrane of RBC, human RBC, consists of 52% of protein component and 42% of lipid component. Which component was more? Protein component was more in the RBC of human erythrocytes. Next, the lipid component consists of phosphoglycerides. As we have discussed here, the lipid component consists of phosphoglycerides. The lipids are non-polar in nature. Why they are non-polar? Because most of the component is made up of tail, which are non-polar. That's why lipids get overall non-polar nature. The cell membrane has fluid nature. It is as flexible as the surface of fluid. Okay, so in that fluid plasma membrane made up of lipids, there are iceberg-like structures which are called as proteins which are floating. Okay, next, the cell membrane has fluid nature. The fluid nature is important for several functions like cell growth. The fluid nature is responsible for growth of the cell. The fluid nature also responsible for intercellular junction formation. Intercellular junction formation means between one cell and adjacent cell. So tight junctions will be formed. So that is also carried out by the fluid nature of the plasma membrane. The plasma membrane fluid nature also responsible for secretion, means release of certain products out of the cell. Endocytosis means the plasma membrane can intake certain molecules into the cell, that is called endocytosis. And also the fluid nature is also responsible for cell division. So these are all the different functions the plasma membrane can carry out because of the property called as fluid nature. Understood, students? Copy down this diagram. Students, once again we will brief the transport across cell membrane. Listen here. Imagine this is the cell membrane. This is the cell membrane which is made up of bilipid layer. And here this is the outside. This is the outside and this is the inside of the cell. Here you can see cytoplasm is present inside the cell. Suppose there is a molecule here. This is a molecule and this is a non-polar molecule. What type of molecule? It is a non-polar molecule. This non-polar molecule, say it is A, it can freely pass through the plasma membrane from one side to another side by process called as diffusion. Okay. So here no ATP energy is required. Without using ATP energy, the non-polar molecule A has crossed the cell membrane, we call this as passive transport. We call this passive transport. Okay. So when the water molecule move across the plasma membrane by diffusion process from one side to another side, we call that diffusion process as osmosis. It is called osmosis. It is called as osmosis. Similarly, the water molecule can move from inside to outside also. Okay. Next, coming to a situation where already there is high concentration of molecules. Already there is high concentration of molecules B inside the cell. And outside the cell there is less concentration of molecules B. So which side there is a high concentration? Inside there is high concentration, outside there is less concentration of molecules. But still the molecules are transported from low concentration to high concentration against concentration gradient. At this time, energy will be used. What energy will be used? ATP energy will be used up. So now this process we consider it as active transport. Example of active transport is sodium potassium pump. Sodium potassium pump is the example of active transport. Okay. So now look here. What about the polar molecules? When polar molecules are present and they need to cross the plasma membrane is not going to allow the polar molecules. The plasma membrane will say simply no, I cannot allow you. So how the polar molecules can be transported across the plasma membrane? So the polar molecules, they take the help of special type of proteins which are present in the plasma membrane. They are called carrier proteins. What are the proteins called? Carrier proteins. So by using these carrier proteins, the polar molecules can move across the plasma membrane. Understood, students? This is the concept about the transport of plasma membrane. Copy down this. Very important for your NEET exam.